For years, FIFA promised that the 2026 World Cup would be the biggest celebration football had ever seen. More teams, more matches, more cities, more fans. Everything about this tournament was designed to be bigger than anything that came before it, but just days before kickoff, a very different story began emerging. In Dallas, hundreds of thousands of tickets remained unsold. In Tampa, England played in front of vast sections of empty seats. Across resale markets, prices for some matches collapsed, while others reached absurd levels. And suddenly, the question nobody inside FIFA wanted to answer became impossible to ignore. What happens when the world's biggest sporting event can't convince fans to fill its stadiums? Because this isn't simply a story about ticket sales. It's a story about trust, about pricing, about accessibility, and about whether football's most important tournament has started drifting away from the supporters who made it special in the first place. The World Cup has always sold a dream. It is supposed to be the moment when football belongs to everyone. Fans save money for years. Families plan vacations around it. Entire nations travel across continents to support their teams. That's what makes the tournament different from every other sporting event. But in 2026, that dream started becoming increasingly expensive. Flights climbed higher. Hotels became harder to afford. Ticket prices continued rising. And for many supporters, attending the tournament started feeling less like a celebration and more like a luxury product. Yet FIFA's forecasts remained optimistic. Host cities invested millions expecting massive waves of visitors. Hotels expanded staffing, restaurants prepared for record demand. Local governments built plans around projections that assumed stadiums would be packed from the opening match to the final. Then reality arrived. Reports from Dallas suggested that more than 350,000 tickets remained unsold across World Cup matches scheduled at AT&T Stadium. Suddenly, one of the flagship venues of the tournament became a symbol of a much larger problem. If Dallas raised eyebrows, England's experience raised alarms. Just days before the World Cup began, England played a warm-up match against New Zealand in Tampa. This wasn't a minor team. England remains one of the most supported football nations on earth. Their matches regularly sell out. Their fan base travels globally. Yet, inside a stadium capable of holding nearly 70,000 spectators, tens of thousands of seats sat empty. The image was impossible to ignore. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not with England, not before a World Cup, not in a country preparing to host football's biggest event. The explanation wasn't difficult to find. For many supporters, every dollar mattered. Why spend heavily on a warm-up match when actual World Cup tickets, flights, hotels, and transportation were already consuming budgets? Fans weren't rejecting football. They were prioritizing survival within an increasingly expensive tournament ecosystem. And that distinction matters because it revealed something deeper. Demand still existed, but affordability was becoming the barrier between supporters and the experience they wanted. But then something even stranger happened. Because the concerns weren't limited to empty seats, they started spreading to FIFA's own ticketing system. Analysts tracking World Cup inventory noticed something unusual. Tens of thousands of tickets appeared to vanish from FIFA's official platform almost overnight. One day, inventory levels appeared relatively high. The next, huge portions of those tickets were simply gone. There was no public explanation. No detailed announcement, no clear transparency regarding where the inventory had gone. Naturally, speculation exploded. Some believed tickets had been reassigned to sponsors or corporate partners. Others questioned whether visible inventory was being managed to create the appearance of stronger demand. Regardless of the explanation, the optics were damaging. Supporters already worried about prices now had another concern. Transparency. In modern sport, trust is fragile. Fans accept high costs when they believe the process is fair, but when information becomes unclear, suspicion fills the vacuum, and every unanswered question creates another reason for potential buyers to hesitate. Then came the ticket glitch. For a brief moment, around 60 supporters believed they had secured one of the greatest bargains in football history, World Cup tickets, for free. The transactions appeared successful. Confirmation emails arrived. Everything looked legitimate. Then FIFA contacted them. The organization explained that a system issue had incorrectly processed the transactions and informed supporters they would need to pay the original price within a limited time frame or lose the tickets entirely. On paper, it was a technical correction. In reality, it became a public relations problem because timing matters. This happened while supporters were already frustrated about pricing, confused by inventory changes, and questioning the overall accessibility of the tournament. The incident reinforced a growing perception that FIFA's commercial priorities were taking precedence over supporter experience. Whether fair or unfair, perception often matters more than intent. And while ordinary supporters were being asked to pay every cent, another part of the ticket market revealed just how disconnected the system had become. At one end of the market, some World Cup tickets were struggling to attract buyers. At the other end, resale listings for premium matches reached astonishing levels. The contrast highlighted a growing imbalance. Football supporters weren't looking at one ticket market. They were looking at multiple realities existing simultaneously. In some cities, prices dropped dramatically. In others, they became completely detached from ordinary purchasing power. This volatility wasn't accidental. It was the result of a pricing strategy built around maximizing revenue. The problem is that football culture doesn't always behave like traditional consumer markets. Fans compare prices, they wait, they speculate, and they delay purchases if they expect discounts later. The result is uncertainty. And uncertainty is dangerous for major events because it slows purchasing behavior. Instead of creating urgency, dynamic pricing can sometimes encourage hesitation. Suddenly, the system designed to increase demand can start undermining it. For FIFA, an empty seat is a missed sale. For a host city, it's something much bigger. Every World Cup match was supposed to trigger a chain reaction throughout the local economy. Supporters would fly in, book hotels, fill restaurants, use public transportation, visit attractions, and spend money throughout the city. That's the promise host cities bought into when they committed resources to the tournament years ago, but when attendance falls below expectations, the impact spreads far beyond the stadium gates. Hotel managers begin questioning staffing decisions. Restaurant owners see fewer customers than forecasted. Local businesses that invested heavily in anticipation of a World Cup boom suddenly face a very different reality. And unlike FIFA, which earns revenue from global sponsorships and broadcasting deals, local communities depend on physical visitors actually showing up. That's why attendance matters so much. It's not simply about atmosphere. It's about whether the economic promises attached to the tournament become reality. The irony is that many of the people missing from those seats are not casual observers. They're often the most passionate supporters, the fans willing to travel internationally, the fans who create the noise, the color, and the unforgettable moments that make a World Cup feel alive. When those supporters are priced out, the tournament doesn't just lose customers. It risks losing part of its identity. And this is what makes the 2026 World Cup so fascinating, because the real question is no longer whether FIFA can sell tickets, it's whether football's biggest tournament can still feel like it belongs to ordinary fans. The football itself may still rescue this tournament. Great matches have a way of changing narratives. Dramatic goals can erase weeks of negative headlines. Packed knockout rounds can make early concerns feel distant. But the warning signs surrounding World Cup 2026 deserve attention because they reveal a growing tension between football as a business and football as a community. FIFA's commercial success has never been greater. Revenues continue to rise, Sponsorship deals continue to grow, global audiences continue to expand, yet the images that may ultimately define this conversation are not financial reports. They are empty seats. Empty seats inside stadiums built for unforgettable moments. Empty seats representing supporters who looked at the costs, the logistics, the uncertainty, and decided the experience was no longer worth the sacrifice. The World Cup remains football's greatest event, but its greatest asset has never been corporate partnerships or pricing models. It has always been the fans, and the question hanging over this tournament is whether football's governing body still understands that. Because if supporters begin feeling excluded from the world's game, no amount of revenue can fully replace what is lost.